Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to another episode of the One Wildlife podcast with me, Abbie Barnes. Now in today's episode, which we're going to get to in a very short while, we are talking about mental health in actually quite a deep and meaningful way. We're covering a lot of ground and hopefully it's going to leave you with plenty of thoughts and maybe some inspiration as well to tap into your innate health and well-being. Now, as I just mentioned, we are talking about mental health and various subjects that surround that, from addiction to different conditions that one could struggle with. We don't go hugely deep into anything that could be seriously sensitive, but viewer discretion is advised, and if you're unsure whether this episode is going to be for you, maybe get a friend or a family member to tune in first and give you the go-ahead if all seems right for you. The flip side to that is if you are struggling and you'd like to reach out for some help, then all the resources that Rani has to offer are in the show notes. And additionally, type in a quick Google search and you'll be able to find some mental health support in your local area, whether that's Mind, the Mental Health Foundation, or another smaller charitable organisation. There's Black Dog Outdoors, which offer free events to help people get outside and connect with others all across the UK. And I believe they're starting to venture out internationally as well. And here at Wild, I run monthly wild walks, which anybody can get stuck into. And if you do get stuck in, they're an awesome opportunity to connect with like-minded individuals in the outdoor scene. Right, let's crack on with the show. Hey everybody, and welcome to the One Wildlife podcast with me, Abbie Barnes. This is simply a show about life, and as such, there are no boundaries to where our conversations can take us. Along the way, we simply aim to inspire, empower, educate, and uplift, exploring how we can all live our best lives every single day. Before we get started, I want to mention that this podcast is hosted by Spend More Time in the Wild, which I founded in 2016 to help individuals get outside for the benefit of mental and physical health. Over the last few years, the project has grown into a worldwide community of passionate and courageous individuals working together to enjoy the beauty of our wild spaces and protect them for generations to come. You can find out more about both the podcast and Wild by visiting www.spendmoretimeinthewild.co.uk. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening, or head on to YouTube to watch the full episode. Rani Bora is a holistic psychiatrist, author, international speaker, and wellness coach. She also works as a practising consultant psychiatrist in the NHS. Her passion is to transform the lives of people struggling with any form of mental health challenge by empowering them and guiding them to their innate well-being and resilience so that they experience inner peace, clarity of mind, and find meaning and purpose in their lives. In partnership with her husband, Dr. Suraj Gogoi, Rani is also working to build an online community of like-minded professionals who want to serve at the highest possible level by breaking free from stress and overwhelm into a healthy and full life. She is the host of the Listening into Wellbeing podcast and author of How to Turn Stress on Its Head. And with that, I'm really excited to dive into today's episode with Rani herself. So Rani, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Abbie. Very excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, absolute pleasure. I'm really keen to dive into all sorts of things. I've had a good day today, I have to say, just sort of stalking you a little bit online. So that's been good. But I would like to dive in, first of all, to get some sort of definitions down. Mental health is being talked about everywhere at the moment. So I'd like to sort of explore, first of all, what is mental health?
Okay. So I haven't come prepared with any definition, so I'll just see what makes sense to me. So we all hear about mental health and, it's everywhere, isn't it? And I guess the assumption is that it's to do with the mind and how healthy the mind is. And also when people think of the mind, they also possibly might think of the brain and say, oh, it's like if someone has mental health problem, there's a disorder of the brain or the disorder of mind. And I guess if you think about it, although we use an umbrella term of mental health, most of the time we put everything in there, including someone who's really thriving and doing really well emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. We could put it in there in mental health and say they enjoy good mental health, to someone who's struggling with what we call mental illness, and we might say they have very poor mental health. So I guess you can say that in terms of the general definition, people will say mental health is in a spectrum, and you can have good mental health, and then you can have very poor mental health, or you can be in between. So I think that's what the concept of mental health is. And yeah, I think that I'll start with that, and obviously we'll proceed and say more things about mental health.
That's it. We'll dive in a little bit more, and actually, I guess from there, I'd like to steer it. Let's take a little bit of time to dive into that. So, I've been thinking a lot about individual thresholds, and essentially, we can go through an experience as an individual, and it can be hard, it can be difficult, it can push us into a challenging mental space. Whereas for other people, it can build resilience, and actually it can make them feel more certain of themselves. They can almost thrive under that pressure and stress. What would you sort of say about these individual thresholds, and sort of where does a mental health struggle or a mental health illness lie amongst all of this?
Wow, that's a very big question, Abbie. I'll do my
Sorry.
best to.
I like the
That's
questions.
all right. I know. I guess it depends on so many different things, isn't it? I mean, there is a model in mental health called the stress vulnerability model, and it's like if there is a family history, if there are lots of mainly family history. That's what we call vulnerability. And if someone scores very highly on the vulnerability, and also they're also scoring very highly on amount of stress in that moment in time, it could be that people could really, if they are faced with a challenge, they could have extreme, experiences, and that could lead to what we call having a crisis or a mental health. They might be labeled with mental health problems. Whereas if someone perhaps have no vulnerability in the sense of there's no family history, they are looking after themselves, quite healthy generally, and they are not having much stress in their life, or they're having a lot of stress in their life, but it might be easier for them to bounce back, so to speak, and also they might just it's also about internal dialogues going on for the person, and their personality, and their assumptions, their beliefs about who they are and what this means. Because if we really believe our mind and all the thoughts that come to us and think, no, this is it, this means that I am no good, and this my life is all falling apart, and obviously we will believe those, and that could again lead to another disaster. So I guess when you talk about individual variations, for sure, that depends on a lot of factors, not just the stress vulnerability. So say, for example, someone is presenting with anxiety, okay, and it's extreme anxiety. So there's so many factors that could contribute to it. Is it something in the environment, something the stresses? Is it their physical health? Have they checked something out with the GP? Is it that they have been watching too much of TV, or being too much on social media? Is it possible that the diet is poor, or they haven't slept? Is it because they are just isolating themselves? So there's so many different things. But at the end of the day, I think that's still on the surface. On the surface level, our symptoms will come and go, and there's more to a person than meets the eye. And that's something I would like to talk about when we talk about innate mental health, because that's something I'm sure you'll ask me about at some point.
That's it. Well, let's go there now, because I'm very keen to understand more about resilience as well. For example, I mean, I share throughout wild, parts of my mental health journey, and how, when I've been out on the trail hiking, it's been really hard, but that's completely shaped me into who I am today. And I have gone there with a very open mind in order to learn through the challenges that I'm going to face. So I'd love to dive into this innate well-being and resilience. You use that phrase quite commonly throughout your work. So tell us a little bit more.
Okay, so let's talk about resilience because that's something I guess people hear a lot. Like, oh, this person is so resilient. This person doesn't have any resilience at all. So it's like it appears in a spectrum. So I say to people, look, it's like we have got two types of resilience. Okay, one is acquired resilience and one is innate resilience. So in terms of the acquired resilience, this is where like we do something like for example, the example you gave, Abbie. I can say, oh, Abbie is more resilient than me, because you have done all those and you have trained yourself, whereas I don't feel, anywhere near that. So I can say, definitely Abbie is more resilient than me. Or you see someone who has got, goes to the gym and, does sort of body pump and all this stuff, and they can lift up lots of weight and then say, there you go, this person is more resilient. Or someone seems to be like when they are faced with challenges, they just seem to be level-headed because they practice mindfulness, meditation, and they do their journaling, whatever, and they seem to be calmer than someone else. So that's what I would call acquired resilience, because there's something we can do and learn to let go of some old habits that don't serve us, our limiting beliefs, and then look at a brighter aspect of life and so on. So that's there. But that too is a hit and miss. Like sometimes although at sometimes we might feel really resilient, other times we feel, oh my goodness, I'm no good. I'm unwell. I'm good for nothing. All that sort of stuff. And so that's something to know that also comes and goes. But the innate resilience I talk about is spiritual, because I'm talking to something. I'm talking spiritual, but I think spirituality has got a bad press in the sense that whenever we say spiritual, like, oh, is all this woolly stuff, or it's to do with God, religion, get me out of here. I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
But I talk about spirituality as this, as an intelligence behind life. And we all experience that. We all have a sense of there's more to life than meets the eye.
Yeah.
And you being out there in the wild, in nature, I guess you see glimpses of that everywhere in nature. You just experience the intelligence everywhere, of nature. So we are part of nature, and we say that when you think about a human being, obviously human aspect is the body, the form, and we need to do stuff. We need to feel resilient, get organized, do all these podcasts, and go into the whatever it is. But there is also this being aspect, and that's the aspect I'm talking about, which already is, which is, doesn't need fixing, is already there. And I talk about that as our true essence, like a true essence of who we truly are. And I find that the saving grace for a lot of people in the sense of hope. I work, like you said, I work as a psychiatrist, and I meet people from all walks of life. And sometimes it's when you think about, when you hear people's stories and you think, oh my goodness, I don't know, I can't imagine how, they must have gone all through all this. And there are people with all kinds of diagnoses and so on. And it seems like on the surface, we are all different. Abbie is different and Rani Bora is different. I'm from India, you're from here. We have different accents and we have different tastes, all that kind of stuff. And again, there are people who might have a diagnosis, a label, and there might be the experts. And it seems like we are all different. We are all have, some people have more resilient others. And that's okay, because that's how it is. But I talk about something deeper than that. That's still the surface level, and at a deeper level, we are all humans, and no one will disagree with that. We are all humans, and there's a being aspect to us, and there is something in us which, like, when we get quiet and listen to, some people call it their wisdom, some people call it their, intuition, some people call it their higher self, but it's like we all know it's there, but we might not feel in touch with that. We might feel that we are, overwhelmed with life and very stressed or anxious or, whatever it is. But there is an aspect of us which is just is, and it's, that's the bit I call innate well-being or innate resilience. And what I like about this, obviously it's a concept in a way, but if you think about it, how do you explain how do you explain consciousness? How do you explain spirituality? You always need to have a metaphor or a concept of some kind. And how do you explain when people say when they do mindfulness, they go into another space? It's like they're still here. So what's different? So what I'm saying here is that we all intuitively know there is a deeper sense of who we truly are. Our stories, it seems like we are our stories, but when we say, really, am I just my story? Am I just this body? Am I just my mind? We know that there's more to it. And that's when people get a sense of that, Abbie, when they get quiet and they can't say, oh, this means this. I mean, this, I can't articulate it any other way except that it's a felt experience. When our mind just gets quiet, we intuitively know that there's more to us, and somehow we just get the sense that we need to reach out for help, or we need to do something. So it's like we have this innate wisdom that speaks to us when the mind gets quiet. So that's the part I say is our innate or true resilience, our true well-being, and that's what can guide us to where we need to go. So that's what I would say about innate health or resilience.
I love this. This is a subject I'm absolutely fascinated by, I have to be honest. There's attributes as well that are obviously a little bit more surface level than this, but I mean, many people, again, who follow Wild know that I sort of live by faith, as I call it, and spirituality is a massive part of my life, and I share my journey there, but it's so hard to even put words to it, because it is feelings, and you're like, the human language cannot manifest in an interpretation of what this is. But I've thought a lot about connection, and what with COVID just having hit the scene and still being on the scene, people have been hit in all sorts of different ways. They've been stressed, and we'll come to stress because obviously that's something that's quite present in your world. Not that you're necessarily stressed, but that you have a book on stress. But people have been separated from one another in a very physical sense. We've been separated from nature, and in, again, a very physical sense. And I'm curious, with the pace of the 21st century, do you feel that spirituality is something that is missing from a lot of people's lives at the moment, just because it is all about the doing and not about the being?
Oh, that's such a beautiful question, Abbie. I think that's what's missing in mental health. That's my personal opinion, obviously, and we all are, we are all entitled to our personal experience. But if you think about it, we are looking at healing the mind, we're looking at healing the body. We don't talk about spirit. If we talk about the spirit, it's like, oh, let's refer them to the chaplain, or someone like that. So it's like it's not a integral part of mental health. But I think that's where the problem is, because you're right, there's so much of doing. Like people say, oh, I need to do yoga, I need to do this, I need to do, and that's great. By all means, keep doing what really you're passionate about and what brings you joy, no doubt about it. And I think that the challenges, and I do share this story quite a lot. The challenge is that if you think that you need to keep doing something for your well-being, if for any reason you can't do that because suddenly you had an accident, or I did have a client long time ago when his identity had been that he's one person who just goes out there and does all this, and when he couldn't do it anymore, then he became very, very depressed. And that we had these conversations about, look, we are not human doing, we are human being. It's not well doing, right? Otherwise we'll say, how's your well doing? We say well being. So in that a very word, is hinting to the fact that there's something about being, and a lot of distress or struggles in terms of mental health is happening because people think less of being, and they think there's something about doing. And I think I really agree with you about that. And going back to what's happening at the moment, or the past year and a few months, is that some people are turning to being. Some people are definitely. I think it has forced people to contemplate about life because of the losses, because of the loss of connection, because suddenly what we used to take for granted is no longer a reality now. And so it has forced people to really contemplate about life. And not everyone, but some has. And it's like, I think that I have heard of some people tuning in or turning inwards for the answers. And I guess, this is where I found, and this was a really good time for me, to turn inwards, and because the answers were not there and we were all looking for, I only wish I could go for the holiday, or had all of those connections, and they were not possible because of the lockdowns and everything we had. And I think if only more and more people would really explore this for themselves, and I think we will see less of the mental ill health we are seeing at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, actually. And again, I keep bringing my own experience to the table because it's just kind of what I do. I am very much at the foothills of being a self-confessed people pleaser. And my addiction is work. My work is my life. I love it. But it also means there is no balance. It's that word again, and I'm interested where sort of addiction falls within all of this, because essentially, we can strive to be, but we can have all these temptations and these things which we do to numb ourselves because we don't want to be, because when we be, we feel the things. And, again, addiction is something we're exploring a lot within Wild, all sorts of different avenues. And I think, we all are addicted to something in one way or another. But what would you say then to somebody who is able to identify that, okay, this is a barrier in my life right now to helping me access my being? How can they take some steps towards becoming more whole in that sense?
Well, the first and foremost, they're already whole, except that it doesn't feel like it's whole.
Okay, fair point. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess when I say they're already whole, their true being is already wholeness, right?
Yeah.
But it's the personal, that ego mind, that ego, this body that feels like there's something missing. And I think this is what we have been given, this body in this world of form. And obviously we all have our weaknesses, we all have our flaws, and I think that's something to acknowledge, that there is no perfect human being. It is someone is out there saying I'm a perfect human being, there's something wrong there, right? And no one would ever say that. And coming to addiction, there are lots of concepts about addiction, but the one I love is the thing that addiction is the thing that it's a state where people are looking for a fix because they are feeling that they are missing something in their life, so they are looking for a fix, and sometimes it's an instant fix. And the reason is that they're not happy with their experiences, and they are trying to numb those experiences by doing something different. So, I'm feeling, it could be an addiction of always like looking for pleasure. Yeah. Or it is addiction for food, whatever it is. It's like it's moving away from pain and moving towards some pleasure. And I know that although we all have habits, and sometimes they might be trivial, sometimes it can escalate and go to the another extreme. But the more people, when there's a lovely quote that comes to mind, Abbie. There used to be a person who discovered the 3 principles understanding, or what is called innate health. That's the one I share. But he has such a lovely quote, and he said that if the only thing people learned was not to get scared of their experiences, that itself would change the world. Yeah. And I think it's so true, because when we are talking about addiction and when we are talking about fixing the feelings, actually we are so scared of our experiences, we are so scared of our feelings, we are trying to numb it, or we are trying to fix it. But if we saw feelings and experiences for what they truly are, that they are they are temporary. They come, they have a beginning, they have a middle, and they have an end. And no matter how horrible it is, when someone is in the midst of that experiences, it still starts suddenly, like it has a beginning, and then we are in the midst of it, and at some point it goes away. And it seems to us like it has gone away because we have done something specific. But it goes away because that's the nature of experiences. It has to come and it has to go. And although people might say it's still there, well, there are times it's going to completely go. For example, when we are asleep and we don't have any personal thinking going on and we are really in deep sleep, those kind of, we are not having those painful experiences because we are not thinking about those. Obviously, people might say, I still dream, and that's different. But in a very dreamless state, I'm talking about something in dreamless state. And then when we wake up, suddenly we remember and suddenly we go back into panicky mode. And I think there is something here about educating ourselves about what is the true nature of our experiences. I'm so scared of my experiences that I'm trying everything. Is it possible that if I really saw through it, I'll realize that it's just a trickster of the, mind is a trickster. It just, it's just tricking me. It's just projecting that experience as a full-blown movie. And I say it in my book. You mentioned my book in the beginning, Abbie. I talk about the mind being like in the brain is like there is it's like Hollywood, it's like a blockbuster movie set where there's like all the full 4D experience, and that's how it is. And that's how powerful the mind is. Any thought we have, it can create into a scene of a blockbuster movie with all the special effects. There's the special effects department. That's how I tell people. So the more we learn about how the mind works and are not so scared, what happens is all those stuff happens, those experiences happen, but we don't seem to be pulled in so much. It's there, but we can watch it just like a movie. It's not like we are in the movie, but we are watching a movie. I think this is really important for people to really understand and get for themselves.
Is that a bit like mindfulness there, when you're sort of watching that activity happening, but you're separate from it?
Yeah, I mean, see, the thing is that when I first came across this understanding called innate health, I thought, oh, it's a bit like CBT. It's a bit like mindfulness. What I'm getting this is like mindfulness is a tool. It's a really useful tool, and that's great. But people, you can do mindfulness so many times, and it works. It doesn't work, sometimes, but it's a healthy practice for people for sure. And again, CBT is a tool and a very useful tool, but it works for some. It doesn't work for anyone. I guess when it comes to when you're saying is it like mindfulness, I would say when people talk about mindfulness, they talk about being in another space. It's like being in a space. So what I would say to people is like, this is not what I'm pointing to is like that mindful space that people are talking about, but that space is already always present, just like the intelligence behind life is always already present. So that's there, that space is always there. There's always like that peaceful space is there, but we as human beings with an ego mind and and we needing to do what we need to do, we dip in and out of that space. But the space of mindfulness, if you see what I mean, is always there, whether we are trying to do mindfulness or not. It's just there. But there are times when we just just say, oh, I give up, and watching something nice, or we're in nature, and then we just fall into the space without any effort. So this is what people mean by just going with the flow. I just felt like one with nature. Those expressions we use, they are like, I suddenly got reminded about my true essence because I dropped into the space without any effort. And I think this is what happens when the mind just gets quiet by itself.
Yeah, I'm curious then what we can do to cultivate that, because in some ways we're in our own little bubble. We're separated from everything else if we really dived into that, and I don't want to because it's a bit scary. But life throws curveballs. It throws stresses. It throws you could be a single parent juggling 3 jobs, and you've got to get food on the table, and you've got to pay the rent. And what do you do then? Like say we're not looking at addiction, but just life is completely pulling you away from yourself because of its demands and its expectations. What can people sort of be looking for to start to cultivate that in a dialogue?
So I think that's a very important acknowledgement, and I really hope that people don't think we are saying, oh, if you do all this, your life, everything in life will change, and you won't have the problem, and you won't be stressed. And I keep saying to people, look, I wrote a book on how to turn stress on its head, but I also feel stressed, yeah, and that's part is inevitable, but also like that's our safety mechanism, that's our survival mechanism, and it's inbuilt. So we are designed to feel stressed, but what we are not designed to is feel that continuous stress all the time. That's not how we are meant to be functioning. We are meant to be feeling stressed because something, because suddenly we think that, oh, there's a threat. And then the moment we realize that it's not a threat, or once the threat passes, then we calm down, we relax. That's how it's designed. But because or what's happened is with modern day living and everything, it's just gone. It's just like stress always there. It doesn't come and go. It feels like it's always there. And the thing that's there, the missing link, so to speak, is thought. Okay, so what I say to people is, look, thought is like this energy. It's like a fish living in water might not know that they're living in water. It's just like it's everywhere. They don't even know that's water. So there's a lovely saying that whoever discovered water, it was not the fish. Okay, so so because it's just like it's part of life, right? So it's like the thought as an energy is always exists. I mean, we are constantly, when we are awake, the brain activity is going on constantly, and we are supposed to have about 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts a day or something. So it's crazy, isn't it? How much of that is. And I guess what happens is invariably we get sucked into those thoughts, and I call it, if you think about it like a train of thoughts, we are constantly jumping from one train of thought to another train of thought, and that's not how we are designed to be. Human beings, our mind, the natural state of our mind is clarity, but of what has happened is over time with conditioning and everything, we feel overwhelmed. So rather than having clarity, it's like our natural state has become, or our unnatural state has become this overwhelm. And like if someone were to ask then, okay, Rani, so if a natural state of mind is clarity and an unnatural state of mind is overwhelm, how can I go back to clarity, right? And the analogy I use is, imagine that there is muddy water in a pond. Someone gives you a stick and asks you to clear the muddy water, and you might just go and think, okay, I've got a stick, I'm going to stir it and make it less muddy. But we know that the more you stir it, it gets muddier, and at some point you say, oh, I give up, nothing works. So you put it down. After some time, in its own time, the water gets clearer. So our mind is like that. If someone says, but okay, you're saying the natural state of mind is clarity, and I'm feeling overwhelmed, so what should I do? It's like then we take the stick is our thinking, we take our thoughts and then keep stirring our mind. Oh, I need to do that. Oh, I'm rubbish, and I should be doing this instead of this, and all the sort of stuff, that brain activity just goes up. So we might be having 90,000 thoughts that day. But what happens is the moment we just notice that we have got on another train of thought, and then we come back to the now, we just it could be anything, we just need this suddenly to recognize that we got in another train of thought. In that very moment of noticing, we come back to the now. And so the other way of saying this is that it's not about doing, it's about being. By noticing and then just being, allowing yourself to be in that moment. And what happens is that when our mind gets clear by itself, Abbie, we do the things that make sense to us. A common sense rises. So it might be that when we're in overwhelmed mode, our common sense is suppressed, and we do all sorts of things. Not common sense is something rubbish. And then once our mind clears by itself, our common sense just comes up, and we say, right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and the thing is, and we just do it. But the main thing here is that modern day lives are tough. there are lots of expectations from others and, schools and work and everything, but also there's a lot of expectation from ourselves. And I think that's something, the more we acknowledge that, like, if we are trying to do 101 different things, and we're also trying to have a clean house, and we're trying to get a life suit, it's not going to happen. And so the thing is that settling for an imperfect environment, or knowing that we can't get everything done, and what happens is the moment we give ourselves permission to just be, and what happens is, interestingly, we get more done. Does it make sense? We get
It
more
does make
done
sense.
because our mind has become clearer and we think clearly, and whatever we are doing, we are able to do a focused piece of work, and that's great. But it's the constant mind chattering and us analyzing our thoughts and saying this and saying that, and I need to do this. Whereas the moment this is why the most important type of self-care is just giving yourself that space to just get quiet, even with a cup of tea. And if possible, just don't do anything, I would say. But even that 5-10 minutes of closing your eyes, and you're not necessarily doing mindfulness, but you are just breathing. You're just taking just pausing. I think that's the important thing, is to pause rather than, slow down, rather than hurry up. And we'll find that when we slow down and we pause, it's like we are putting the stick down and we are just watching the muddy water clear slowly. And I think that's what I would say to people when they say, oh, what do I do? I would say, actually, don't do anything. Sit down, pause, and just watch this settle down by itself. And what people will find, that the more they notice this, they keep looking in this direction and they do this experiment for themselves, they find it's a lovely surprise that things are still the same. They still have to pay the bills, they still have to do everything, but somehow they just get that extra experience of just feeling quiet.
No, I'm really glad we're getting the time to jump into this a little bit, because I think, being able to distinguish the being a mind thing rather than just, I mean, it is a body thing, but you're not saying like, quit your job, get out of there, like, get someone in to help you manage everything. Maybe it is a case of that for some people, but I think the being has almost become a trend, and self-love has become a trend, and self-care, and we're hearing this a lot. And being able to really pick that apart and identify, actually, what is it that's the common factor within all of these things. People are like, take a bath, go for a walk in nature, have a mindful cup of coffee. Like, ultimately it is, as you say, it's that pause, it's that inhale, it's that just taking that time to come back within yourself and just be.
Absolutely. And you know what? All the other things that people say do, they are like, yes, common sense stuff, but it might not make sense to the person in that moment. But when they just take that time, it might occur to them to, like, I'll just take a bath. That's then, rather than a thing to do, it just makes sense. It makes complete sense for them in that moment to do that. So it becomes more natural rather than a force. I have to take a bath, because if you force yourself to take a bath when you're not feeling like it, you're not going to enjoy that experience. So I guess then, our wisdom will speak more, and we'll know, it's like, it's more it's fluid, like it's more going with the flow. And we find that life is less of a struggle and more of a, like, it's unfolding by itself, so to speak. And we are just being guided, by, like, okay, I'm just going to do this. Guided doesn't mean that, the sky divides and something, it tells you, I want you to go in that direction. No, it guides the sense that our own wisdom guides us to do something or do nothing or go to sleep. And I think that's the innate resilience. People have that available to them. And if they don't know it, they will constantly look for support from someone else or look to fix with something else. So the more they know that divine guidance or that innate wisdom is with them, and they just need to get quiet and they just need to be patient, I guess. They will find that it's more of it's very natural and it's very common rather than something like, very uncommon. So it's always available to us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can imagine it's very personal as well, how you access that, you know, depending on sort of this the stress threshold at which you've been living. It can be very hard to get back into your body. You know, it can be very hard to give yourself permission and time to have that pause. But what I love about this is it's applicable to everybody. You know, you could be a high achieving professional, you know, top of your game, and you can still use this. You can be a student, you know, studying for your A levels, and you can use this tool, if you want to call it a tool. And actually, you know, obviously within your work you often focus on sort of the professional side of things in terms of your coaching, you know, working one-to-one with people in the professional fields. But let's have a chat about students at the moment. You know, we are seeing mental health illnesses, difficulties, struggles, fill in the blank, on the rise with young people. You know, more and more young people are getting referred to specialists such as yourself or others. What do you think's going on there?
Well, first of all, I need to say that I am a general adult psychiatrist, so I'm not specialized in children and adolescents, but I can just share my views as to what might be happening. I think it could be so many different things, and obviously there is some expectations, expectations from the schools, and the in terms of academic work and achievements, and how society wants to shape them in a certain way, and this is the direction you should be taking, and it can be quite overwhelming getting good grades in GCSE, A levels, and that kind of thing, and thinking of your career, but also peer judgment, and we know about the social media and how it can be helpful, but at the same time there could be a lot of judgments going on about someone's shape, someone's how they look, and what they're wearing, and basically it's like, am I good enough? That kind of thing, based on other people in my of my age, am I good enough? And it seems like those could be there, but also the other thing is that lifestyle plays a huge role, I would say, because a lot of teenagers, because it depends, isn't it? They might not have been educated in school, and they might not understand the importance of adequate sleep. They might they might be on social media until very late because they think this is what people do. All their friends hang out until very late in the morning, and so they are not paying attention to their sleep. And the thing is that sleep is the foundation of good mental health. And if people are having broken sleep, or they are having a lot of alcohol, because it's the thing, if you're trying to fit in, or the party thing, all that is going to affect our sleep. And obviously, if people are also not looking after the diet, and they are not going out into nature, spending most of the time indoors, and that kind of thing, and that doesn't know how to manage the stress, I guess all of them, that is going to have an impact on their mental health. So I think in terms of why it's rising, I think it could be a combination of all this. But also, when you're a teenager, you're not, when you're young, you don't really ask questions like, who am I truly? Am I my thoughts? Who am I truly? Life purpose, or something like that? I mean, these are very deep questions, and these are not something people are going to ask when they are like children. They are just having a good time, right? Obviously, it's not general. Some people might be thinking that, but on the whole, I guess it's like they are also looking for a quick fix, like adults do. Children and adolescents, they are also thinking of a fix, and they are also getting scared of their experiences. So they are looking for other ways to fix their experiences, and the more they are going into it, they might have also stumbled across drugs, stumbled across alcohol, and perhaps their life is not going as they intended it to. But all of this can change, and has changed, because there are lots of people doing really good stuff with children, and teaching them about innate health, and about their own resilience. And once children and adolescents knew that they were not, there's nothing broken about them, they don't have to be fixed at the truest self, and they are okay, they have resilience from within, I guess we'll see another picture, and people won't be struggling so much.
Gosh, I have so many different places I want to go with this, but let's come back to one as a whole. So mind, body, spirit, however you want to define it, but I want to stick with that, and I'm enjoying that. So when we're being, how does this connect with our bodies? So say we have a physical ailment, we're experiencing physical pain, be it chronic pain or, you know, short-term pain. Does being able to access our innate being, can that help us manage a physical pain or a digestive problem or whatever it is that's going on in our body? Will it bring a more harmonious homeostasis there?
Okay, I think that's a very good question. All I would say is that if someone is very peaceful and they just feel peaceful, that can change the relationship with the pain or the chronic ailment, and they might they might have fresh thought about what they could be doing differently in their life in terms of adapting a new lifestyle of some kind. You know, I think the main thing here is that see, in this and everyone is different and unique in this world of form, and you know, some people are living with a long term lots of chronic conditions, and there are so many good advice out there. Or if you have got diabetes, for example, you need to do this, or all you need to do is da 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 da. And if you have got this chronic pain, and this is what you need to do, and you need to look at, you know, having a healthy diet, and you know, managing your pain, and doing all these exercises and so on. And so people do know that all this information is out there, and yet they might not do that, you know, and yet it seems like there's a barrier. And I guess if they really looked within, and if they spend, you know, had opportunities to explore, you know, in terms of their true self, or you know, mindfulness, however you call it, there's going to be a shift in the way they process things, the way they can calm down, and they can be quiet, and they can also bear that pain, because some, you know, pain is unbearable for sure, but there could be two layers. One is the actual pain that the person is experiencing, that's not made up at all. And the second layer is a lot of thinking about what the pain means, or you know, or you know, I'm horrible and this pain is still there, feeling guilty. And you know, the second layer is the one that could clear if someone were to be more in touch with who they truly are, or the sense of, you know, just beingness. So I guess that way, at least the heaviness would become less. Does it make sense?
That makes a lot of sense, you know, because well, my partner and I, we've been having a lot of conversations about sort of emotional pain being caught up in your body, you know, and again, I share across the platform the films that we've been making. I've dealt with chronic pain in my back for a long time, and there's been conversations about, oh, it's your discs, oh, it's your nerves, oh, it's just your pain, your brain's reception of pain. And you know, I'm a strong believer that there's actually a lot of like emotional connection to that region, particularly because when I'm in an emotional state, it tends to play up a little bit more. So it's yeah, it's just a fascinating area, and I feel like, of course, we could really dive into the science of this and how the brain is working and all of that sort of thing. But my mind keeps coming back right now as well to current conflict, which is, you know, I feel like many people are able to acknowledge the stresses of life, you know, and then people go either way. So they might go, okay, life is stressful, but I'm going to get my game on, and I'm going to, you know, go to the peak of my performance. I'm going to become a professional. I'm going to use this to inspire others, to tell my story. And others go, okay, I'm going to buy an island, and I'm going to shut myself off from the world, and I'm going to grow my vegetables, and that's all I want to do. Where would you say we should be steering ourselves? I mean, I feel like everybody is obviously independent, and it's not, should is probably the wrong question, to be honest, but it's that being, can we be in both of those situations? I guess what I'm almost getting to here is authenticity, perhaps. What's most authentic to who we are?
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. See, we don't have the luxury to say we'll stop everything we're doing and go to the Himalayas and just do retreats all the time and not have to worry about, the money will come from wherever it comes. I'm sorry, I can't do that. I mean, some people might be able to say that, but I guess I will have real concerns. Like, yeah, I mean, at where I am in my level of consciousness, it doesn't occur to me as something I should be doing, or it is going to be, something that I should be striving to, and I'm not. So what I would say is that irrespective of whatever we choose, it's always available. The beingness is always available. Whether you want to be a doctor, or you are a doctor, or you're a high performing coach, or you're a gymnast, or you are a school teacher, doesn't matter. Or you are a stay at home mom, doesn't matter. This, because we are human beings, it is across the board. We obviously we look different and we have different roles and so on. That's different, but it doesn't mean anything, because we could be in the midst of a meeting, and we just get so quiet within the meeting, and we have a very different experience of the meeting that otherwise it might be a very heated conversations, and we just experience something else, and from that place we share and we bring our energy into that workplace. So what I'm saying is that I love this by Eckhart Tolle, and he talks about inner purpose and outer purpose, and I love it. He talks about outer purpose, exactly what you're saying, which way do you go? We talk about stress, we acknowledge stress, and we might go this way, we go out that way, we might be following our passion, whatever it is, and that keeps changing. Sometimes I might say, oh, I'll do this, and then next minute I say, no, I'm completely leaving that, I have another passion now. So it can keep changing, and that's all right. That's the outer purpose. And he talks about inner purpose, meaning finding ourselves, finding our true essence. And once the inner purpose and outer purpose is in harmony, it's like life is smoother. Yeah, of course there will be stress, but it seems like, because we are in touch with the inner, with aspect of however inner self, however you say it, it's just like we are, no matter which direction we are taking, we are just enjoying it, or we are just exploring it, and we feel at peace or at ease most of the time, not all the time, because again the mind keeps playing up and all the projections, so there will be, our moods will go up and down for sure. But the thing is that when we even have a glimpse of our inner purpose, or our true self, or our true essence, or innate health, however you say it, we might get lost from time to time, but we return home, or we come back home, because we suddenly remember. So I would say it doesn't really matter. Like you said, being is always there, so it doesn't matter whether you choose this or that, or you can even change your mind, and it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, it's this is growing on me, I can say that for sure. This might be slightly out of your field of expertise, and it might be more opinion based, but I'm curious to ask it anyway. So in a perfect world, more and more of us were tapping into our being. We were able to tap into that stillness, we're able to find our flow a little bit more, we're able to stay in a bit more attunement as to who we are and our higher purpose, if you want to call it that, from the spirituality side of things. Do you feel that in a very divided world right now, that could be the turnaround point to a lot of the crises that we're facing, from an environmental standpoint, to a mental health standpoint, to a stress standpoint? Could this change the world?
Oh wow, such a beautiful question, and I think and the answer would be, why not? Why not?
Love it.
And someone once said that, the day, I'm trying to remember, when you asked me that question, something came to mind. It was like, if we don't have any divorces, or any separations, or any conflicts inside each household, we will see world peace. Every single house, if there is like no arguments, no relationship difficulties, no domestic violence, all this kind of stuff in the home, then we will see world peace. And I thought, that's so beautiful, that's really beautiful, because we are coming back to that that individual and their small, the small family, and then how the it's just going to, I think it's like it's just, sorry, I'm struggling with my word here, but you get the sense that if the harmony is within the small individual families, every single family, 7.6 billion or however, is everywhere, then it's bound to be world peace. So, what you're saying, I just say, absolutely, why not?
Yeah, and I like that because it's almost like start where you are,
Yeah.
talk to the people around you. Communication is obviously key to making things work in a lot of places. And, I don't think overnight we're necessarily going to tackle these big issues, just climate change, domestic violence, whatever it is, poverty. But start where you are. As you say, we have this within us. And do you reckon if we're tapping into that state then that others can feel it and can be drawn towards it?
Um, I'm not sure about tapping into it because that becomes a doing. I'm going
Got
to
you.
tap into the space. Like, come on, where's the space? I will get very, very frustrated. The space just reveals itself. But it could be anything. You're looking at you're looking at a baby, a newborn baby, and you just feel love. You just feel love, and you haven't even planned to tap into that love. You just felt love, or you are out in nature, and you are not even thinking of connecting to nature. You can't help it, but you just end up connecting to nature. So I guess so tapping into means just falling into that naturally. So that's how I would say it, because otherwise it becomes otherwise the problem is that the being becomes a doing. You do something to get into the being. However, we all do practices, don't we? And we can have a practice of just slowing down. We can just have a practice, so whenever we go out and in nature, rather than rushing through nature, we just intentionally we pause and we slow down, and no, with no agenda as such, but just allowing us to slow down, and little by little, I guess, it might be just it grows on us, and we feel that we are, we just feel we just experience that stillness, that calmness that's always there. We are not even creating that stillness; it's just there. And like you said, you using the words, we tap into it without even intending to or doing something specific to do that.
Yeah, no, I get that. And thanks for that clarification. I think it's good. It's almost like tricky to get your head around, isn't it? Because you're like, oh, I'm going to be by doing this. And then it's like, no, wait, don't do that.
I
But
know, I know.
yeah,
I try, and it doesn't work when I try, and then effortlessly I just fall into that from time to time.
if you're trying, you're already going the wrong way, sort of,
I
but not.
know, I
Anyway,
know.
so let's take a slight step into the doing now. And I'd like to explore things that we can do that can help to promote good mental health. Like there's the term lifestyle medicine being thrown around a lot at the moment. I'm interested to learn where you stand within that and what we can do sort of on a day-to-day basis to cultivate or protect our mental health.
Yeah, I think again, the life. I am a firm believer in the lifestyle, definitely for our that form, because we need to look after our body. We need to look after our personal mind. We can't do without that, because we can't just say, "Oh, I'll just be in the being space," and who cares of the body? Who cares of the personal mind? But it's all intertwined anyway. So lifestyle medicine, I think the easiest way I ask people to remember is by thinking of the acronym MEDS, MEDS. About stress management, one is like, I would say is, like the stuff that we talked about now is about exploration of, where our experiences come from. So that kind of stress management, I guess. It's about a diet. How are we eating? Are we eating real food? Are we eating something that looks like real food rather than crisp and chocolates and diet cokes and all this sugary stuff? Because that all affects our well-being. And how much are we sleeping? Because I think like I said, sleep is the foundation of well-being. And what I see in people with mental health, presenting with mental health crisis, or the first warning sign would be that they haven't been sleeping well, or they have been awake for a long time, or it's going, it's the early warning sign. But we need to be proactive about the sleep and make sure we get adequate sleep. And for most people, it will be something around between 7 to 9 hours. And some people are very lucky to get away with 6 hours, but most of us need avoidance. And finally, it's about move size. If we are just sitting most of the time, or we're sitting in front of the TV or sitting in front of the computer, not going out, not exposing ourselves to broad, the natural light, and not having any exercise, brisk walking or anything else, that's also going to affect our sleep, our well-being. And there are two more. One is the connection. Obviously, we know that the main connection is with ourselves and looking inwards, but also connecting with others. I think as human beings, as humans, we all need that kind of that experience of being in a community. So that connection is important. And finally, not those addictive substances we talked about, or addiction, is like, if we can avoid those addictive substances, they also help our well-being. So those are the 6 in total, that's really important to look after our mind and body. And in doing so, we are also getting more in touch with that innate resilience we're talking about, in a way.
No, thank you for sharing that. You might not be able to answer this next question because it might be slightly controversial. But again, I've shared a little bit with other people within the project about my own journey sort of within the NHS. And this was never something that came up in conversation. It was straight away like, what's wrong with you? Not what's happened to you, or what can we look at within your day-to-day life that may be lacking. Do you feel this is a journey the NHS is on? Or is it sort of stuck going down the medicine side of things, which I'm not saying is a bad way to go. It's certainly the right way for some people. But where are we heading as a medical practice, certainly in the UK? Are we more steering to this holistic style, or would you say it's more treated with drugs and prescriptions?
I guess there's lots of innovation going on in NHS at the moment, and there are lots of creative, open-minded individuals coming up, health professionals doing some amazing work. And there are lots of GPs who are practicing as lifestyle medicine practitioners, and they might give you a prescription for sleep or doing some exercise, rather than start you on an antidepressant, at least for the initial few bits. Then if they have tried everything and they need to do it, they will. So I see a lot of hope. And what I definitely can say is that in my own practice, I certainly adopt lifestyle medicine approaches. So I can't say for everyone, but I really hope that this is the direction of travel. And there are like branches of medicine, like integrative psychiatry. Like there's a branch of psychiatry where they are they are holistic. They are looking at other things, not just medicine, not just talking therapy. So it is, it's hopeful. When NHS will, when all those will come to NHS is a different matter. But I think what I see is that there are lots of people in the NHS waking up. So it might just be a matter of time before we have all this available within the NHS.
No, that's helpful. Thank you for sharing that. So to begin to wrap this up then, I sort of have one final question that sort of takes it away from self, but is more of an outward view. If we are seeing that somebody perhaps is struggling, whether in our immediate family or a colleague, what sort of steps can we take to reach out to them and support them where they may be struggling?
Yeah. Oh, that's a beautiful question. And I do have something to say here, is that it's about giving people that space. And I think that's key. Sometimes people think, oh, I need to do something specific. I need to say something specific, and I need to make them better. And sometimes people don't need that. But what people really need is that love and understanding, and someone holding space when they are in a really difficult time. And sometimes we might be put off by thinking, oh, they are so so unwell, or they're so anxious. There's nothing I can say or do that will make them feel better. And you're probably right. There's nothing you can say or do that will make them feel better. So don't even try, but be there for them. And this is what I love. There is something about that energy we take when we're trying to support someone, and we have no agenda. We are just there, we're listening. And what I say is, and that's the name of our podcast, by the way, listening into well-being, rather than looking into fixing and listening to what's going wrong. When we just are there for people, and that, it's just there holding their hand or just listening to them, or not even speaking, but being besides them. And when we know about our own, you know, innate health or innate resilience, and we know that everyone is the same, so they can't be any different. Just because they're struggling doesn't mean that, and it seems like they're struggling with mental health difficulties or whatever. It doesn't mean that their innate health or innate resilience has gone away, because we're talking about the true essence. True essence can't go away. It's just constant. When we just know this, we can be there, we can be still, and we know that, they also have that bit. They might not be in touch with that, they might feel completely lost, but it doesn't mean anything. And when we have that, it's like our energy is very different to our energy if we were going there in the fixed mode, or you should be doing this and you should be doing that. That doesn't mean that, if they really need the help and they need to go to someone, we won't guide them, because I think our wisdom will speak, and our wisdom will, guide us as to what's the next step if they're really struggling a lot. So I guess it's not like we are just watching and not doing anything, but we are using, we are really using our own guide, our wisdom to guide us, to be of service to them. And so this is how someone can be of most help to anyone who's struggling.
Oh, that's fantastic. Hold the space for others and ourselves. I think that's a wonderful way to wrap this up. Well, Rani, I've really thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I feel like we could do multiple episodes here, but I will draw the line to give you a bit of a break. But to wrap up each episode, I normally jump into 10 quick fire questions. So these are completely unrelated to everything we've talked about. Are you ready to begin with question number one?
Oh my goodness, I'm so nervous. I'm always rubbish at this sort of thing. But yeah,
they're quite friendly. You should be all right.
Okay.
All right. So the first question is, what was the last book that you read and loved?
What's Missing from Medicine? That's the book I loved, and it's by a MD doctor called Stacy someone. I can't remember her surname, but that's a book I loved.
Okay, brilliant. Are you a morning or an evening person?
Morning person.
Well, what sort of time do you wake up?
6, 6:30.
Good, proper morning person. I like it. Question number 3, a little bit different. If you were reincarnated as an ice cream flavor, what flavor would you be?
Okay. Is there something called mint chocolate chip or something?
Yeah, that's it.
Mint something. Yeah. The reason is my daughter loves it.
That's good. That's nice. I like that. Mint chocolate chip it is. Good. Question number 4. What did you want to be when you were growing up?
It was very sad, but I wanted to be a doctor.
Oh, fair enough.
No imagination whatsoever.
Well, I think it's good. Why did you want to be a doctor?
Just wanted to be with people. Just wanted to listen to people.
That's good. I like that. Okay, next question. What is your most unusual talent?
Oh my goodness. Okay. While having a cold shower in the morning, I can do a sort of silly dance within the shower, and the shower.
I like that.
So that's my unusual talent.
That is very good, and hats off to you with the cold shower as well. That's a good thing to practice.
Yeah.
Who has inspired you the most in your life?
That's beautiful. Well, I mean, there are quite a few people coming up, but I would say it was one of my supervisors in psychiatry, and when I was a trainee psychiatrist, and he told me this story that really stayed with me, and he said people would come to him and say, I'm schizophrenic, and he used to say, I've never seen a schizophrenic. And people would say, what? But you're a psychiatrist. And he would say, yes, I have met people with a diagnosis of schizophrenia, but I've never met a schizophrenic. And I just got so inspired by this wonderful, wonderful psychiatrist. And I think he has helped me shape a lot, in terms of my work and why I became recovery oriented. So thanks to you, Glenn Roberts. So that's his name.
Gosh, that's very inspirational. No, thank you for sharing that. Okay, next question is, when you're at the end of your life, what will matter to you the most?
That I've made a difference in the lives of people with mental health issues, and they saw that they were not broken.
Wow, that's powerful. Nice. Thank you. Okay, next question. I always feel a bit daft following with this one, but what's your favorite food?
What's my favorite food? Something to do with coconut. I just love coconut. So anything. Yeah. So yeah, anything to do with coconut is my favorite food.
Nice. Good answer. I'll take that. You could even be coconut ice cream. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, penultimate question. What is your favorite outdoor space?
I don't know what qualifies as outdoor space, but woods, trees, huge trees. There's something so soothing about trees, and yeah, I just love those tall trees, and it feels like it reminds me of the intelligence behind life, something that we have been talking about today.
Yeah, trees are just trees. That's all. Cool. Final question then is, do you have any catchphrases or mantras that you live your life by?
I think in terms of live my life by, for my work, yes, my catchphrase, and the love that I borrowed from another psychiatrist, is that people might be lost, but they are not broken. And that's something that I remind myself again and again and again. And that's definitely my catchphrase and most beautiful phrase I love.
Gosh, it is beautiful, that's for sure. Well, thank you for sharing that and your wonderful answers to those questions. Where can people sort of find out more about your work and what you do?
So if people want to get in touch with me, they just need to type my name, Dr. Rani Bora. I am available on social media quite a lot. And we have a website called Doctors Rani and Suraj. Obviously, that's our, that's our website. But if you just Google Dr. Rani Bora, I'll come up. And yeah, just get in touch with me if we have any questions. Or we're interested in any of the conversation we had today. I really love this. I really love this space, Abbie. Thank you for providing such a beautiful space.
Well, thank you for finding the time in your busy schedule as well to come on. It's been really lovely to dive into all of this with you. And who knows, maybe we'll get you back on and we can sort of explore another area in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, who knows?
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode, guys. I really hope you've enjoyed it and maybe found it quite thought-provoking as well. If you have, don't be shy to go back and listen to it again. Maybe take some notes, send it to some friends or family members and dive into a discussion, picking things apart and maybe just tuning into that innate well-being and conversation that happens within ourselves. Either way, it was awesome to share this with you. And don't forget, if you're lacking that community and you want to find your own, then please don't be shy and join our community. That's patreon.com/spend more time in the wild. In the meantime, check out Rani's book, head to her website and tune into her podcast as well. She's got some really good stuff going on, so the learning doesn't have to stop here. We'll see you soon, guys, and until then, stay wild.